Ethan Payne was particularly attentive to the new transfer student from a poor background. Because I publicly accused her of stealing class funds, the girl felt her self-esteem was hurt. She left in tears but accidentally fell down the stairs, injuring her leg. To get back at me for her, Ethan locked me out during a stormy night. Looking down on me, he accused, "What right do you have to humiliate Selena? If it weren't for our engagement, would you even be able to come from the countryside to stay with my family?" I was drenched in rain all night and fell ill for 3 days. To make it up to me, his mother, Mrs. Payne, suggested we get engaged after graduation. This time, before Ethan could refuse, I declined first. Ethan was stunned. He didn't know that the first thing I did when I woke up was to apply for a transfer to another school. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. The rain was getting heavier. I stood at the entrance of the mansion, completely soaked. Ms. Webb, the housekeeper, looked at me apologetically. "I'm sorry, Melissa. If I let you in, I'll be fired." I wiped the rainwater from my face. "It's all right, Ms. Webb. Could you just bring out my mobile for me? With my phone, I could at least call a taxi to get out of the rain for a while." She didn't move, only saying softly, "I'm sorry." I paused for a moment, not wanting to trouble her further. It was nearly midnight on a rainy night. I had no choice but to press myself against the wall, hoping the eaves would provide some shelter from the wind and rain. Ethan had achieved his goal. I don't know how long I stood there, my arms turning white from the cold. Ethan appeared at the doorway with Selena. The girl blinked in surprise but said nothing. Ethan lowered his gaze to me. "Now, are you still unwilling to apologize? 2 hours ago, I would have stood my ground. Even argued with Ethan out of frustration. If Selena hadn't falsely accused me of stealing the class funds in front of everyone, I wouldn't have felt compelled to expose her publicly. Unable to bear the scrutiny of our classmates, Selena had run out and injured her leg. Ethan blamed me for the incident. At this moment, my pride was overshadowed by my survival instinct. I knew my mind was becoming foggy from the cold. I opened my mouth, and rainwater poured in. "I'm sorry, Selena," I said, bowing heavily to her. "I shouldn't have done that." Selena retreated behind Ethan. "But I don't want to forgive her." Ethan squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It's all right." He looked at me impassively for a while. "It's too late." I staggered, feeling unsteady on my feet. The rain pelted down relentlessly, each drop seeming to drag me further down. Ethan looked down at me from his superior height. Publicly accusing Selena, was it to humiliate her? You know the answer in your heart. He seemed to give a faint smile. "But who are you to humiliate her? If it weren't for our engagement, would you have been able to come from the countryside to stay with my family? Do you really think you're a princess now?" Selena coughed twice and said softly, "It's so cold, Ethan. Can we go back inside, please?" Ethan's gaze fell to the hem of her dress, where raindrops had left faint watermarks. His brow furrowed, and he immediately ushered Selena inside, closing the door. "Be careful not to catch another cold." The last glimmer of light was extinguished. My eyelids felt incredibly heavy. I must have been exhausted. I crouched by the door, hugging my knees, and drifted off to sleep from sheer fatigue. Presumably, once asleep, I wouldn't feel the cold anymore. The dream was warm, unlike the cold reality. At 5 years old, Ethan was just as quiet and reserved as he is now. His parents were ready to take him back to the city to live. Ethan ignored them, turning away and leaving them with a view of his round little head. He walked up to me and took my hand. "Don't want to be apart from Melissa." It was my first time tasting a Ferrero Rocher, and I was over the moon. Jumping up and down with excitement, I hardly noticed what he was saying. In the end, both families agreed to bring me to the city too, to stay with the Paynes. It would also mean better education for me. Ethan crouched in front of me, his chubby cheeks puffed out. "Melissa, come with me, okay?" I was a bit reluctant, but I don't like the city. Ethan wasn't happy about that. He snatched away my Ferrero Rocher. "Then you can't have this. And you won't get any more in the future." For the sake of chocolate, I quickly gave in, frantically trying to grab it back. I'll go with you, Ethan. Give it back. Ethan. Ethan. I seemed to mumble something as I woke from my dream. Instead of leaning against a cold, hard wall, I found myself nestled in a soft, downy duvet. It took me a few seconds to react. Only then did I slowly realize I was in my own room. Melissa, you're finally awake. Ms. Webb exclaimed with relief. Thank goodness, you've been feverish for 3 days. I'll go make you some porridge now. As she left, Ethan, who had been standing silently by my bed, asked in a low voice. What were you dreaming about? He continued slowly, you called my name in your sleep. Not wanting to dwell on emotional memories, I simply said, I don't remember. My voice was hoarser than I expected. Ethan didn't press further, handing me a glass of water instead. I took it, saying, thank you. He paused, raising an eyebrow slightly. Being polite with me now? It's been a while since I've heard you say that to me. Ethan spoke calmly, as if nothing had happened. I didn't know what to say, staring blankly at the duvet. It seemed I had lost all emotion related to Ethan. I didn't want to question why he had sided with Selena. No more jealousy, anxiety, or panic. And of course, I wouldn't feel touched or softened by his sudden care. It was like a rainstorm had extinguished all my expectations for Ethan. I didn't like him anymore. In the early evening, I went downstairs for dinner. Selena was still at the Payne's house, not having left yet. She sat comfortably next to Ethan, no longer as nervous as she had been on her first visit. I chose a seat quite far from the two of them and quietly sipped my soup. Ethan noticed this, his gaze lingering on me for a couple of seconds, but he said nothing. Selena greeted me casually, her round eyes looking incredibly sincere. With a concerned expression, she asked, Melissa, are you feeling any better? May I check your forehead to see if you still have a fever? As she reached out, I had to use all my willpower not to flinch away. This rainy incident had made me realize Selena's position in Ethan's heart. Upsetting Selena was equivalent to upsetting Ethan. The brief PTSD from being caught in the rain had made me unintentionally compliant. Selena sat back down and nodded. Good, good. No more fever. She rested her chin on her hand, her mood visibly low. Melissa, I'm sorry. But even though you've received your due punishment, I still can't forgive you. You've caused me irreversible harm. I nervously gripped my spoon, looking towards Ethan. What did she mean by not forgiving me? Would they tie me up and leave me out in the rain again? I was still unwell and had no strength to resist. The housekeeper, Ms. Webb, approached the table with dishes, calmly serving the food. Perhaps when Melissa is feeling better in a few days, she can continue her punishment in the rain, she said nonchalantly. She's too weak now. You both don't want her to suddenly drop dead outside, right? Ethan, without looking up, said, no one is making her go out in the rain again. Selena's smile faltered for a moment. Right, of course. I didn't say anything. Ms. Webb, do you have some issue with me? Ms. Webb was being targeted for trying to help me. I hurriedly tried to explain on her behalf. But I choked on my soup and started coughing uncontrollably. She exclaimed, I'll get you some water right away. The next second, a slender hand placed a glass of water in front of me. Ethan gently patted my head, his voice still cold. What are you panicking about? This incident is over. Do you really think I'd make you stand in the rain again? Am I that heartless in your eyes? After just one night, I was no longer accustomed to his intimate gestures. I used the excuse of reaching for the water to avoid his hand. Ethan didn't seem to notice anything amiss and simply asked, Have you finished eating? I nodded. He raised an eyebrow and leaned down as if to lift me up. I shrank back slightly, asking in confusion, What are you doing? Carrying you back to your room. I pressed against his arm, quickly standing up. No need, no need. I can go back by myself. Ethan, his patience wearing thin, clicked his tongue and picked me up without allowing for refusal. You're still ill. Can you stop being difficult? Over his shoulder, I saw Selena biting her lip hard, glaring at me. I tensed up, uncomfortable in his arms, unable to understand why Ethan was acting this way. Ethan's mom returned from abroad the next day. Upon hearing about the incident, she rushed over to comfort me. "Melissa, are you feeling better?" she asked. "I've already given that naughty boy a 2-hour lecture. I've stood up for you, dear." Ethan stood nearby, rubbing his temples with a pained expression. She patted my hand inside. "Ethan has been too restless lately. We're thinking of having you two get engaged in about 6 months. After you finish your A-levels. It might help him settle down a bit." Ethan's jaw tightened, his expression turning cold. Before he could speak, I politely declined. "That's not necessary, Mrs. Payne. There's no rush for an engagement." Ethan looked slightly taken aback. He stood silently, watching as I gently persuaded Mrs. Payne until she left. He seemed to be deep in thought. His Adam's apple bobbed before he casually asked, "Didn't you say last year on your birthday that you wanted to make our relationship official after graduation?" His gaze slowly moved to my face. "Why aren't you in a hurry now?" Ethan can be quite difficult to understand sometimes. He was the one eager to refuse, but when I spoke up to decline on his behalf, he didn't look particularly pleased either. I couldn't find an excuse to brush him off. Fortunately, Mrs. Payne returned and called him away, ending the conversation prematurely. The door closed, and the room fell silent once more. I lit up my phone screen. From Mr. Smith. "Melissa, the transfer paperwork should be ready in about a week. Since A-levels are approaching, to avoid falling behind, please try to attend classes during this time." Mrs. Payne has hurriedly flown back abroad again. The mansion is once more left with just Ethan and me. I continue my daily routine of going to and from school, just as before. The only difference now is that I no longer cling to Ethan or interfere with his relationship with Selena. In the past, whenever I saw the two of them inseparable, I would grab a cup of milk and rush to Ethan's desk to complain. "Hey, Ethan, don't you think you should keep some distance from Selena?" The boy would be verifying calculations on his scratch paper, not even looking up. "Reason? Because your girlfriend might get jealous." He'd pause his writing and chuckle. "What?" With a flushed face, I'd boldly declare, "We're going to get married eventually anyway, so can't I call myself your girlfriend?" Ethan would smile without responding. But he never took my words seriously. Still sharing an umbrella with Selena on rainy days and lending her his jacket. Fortunately, now I can ignore all of this quite well. Tuesday evening, after the study session ended, the driver was waiting outside the school gates as usual. Ethan carried Selena in his arms, bypassing me to get into the car first. With tightly pressed lips, he said in a low voice, "Selena suddenly fainted. I need to take her to the hospital immediately. You'll have to go home by yourself today," he added, pausing before looking at me and asking, "Is that all right?" The driver turned back to remind him, "Melissa's still not well. Is it safe for her to take a cab alone this late?" Ethan frowned deeply. "But Selena looks very ill. We can't wait. It would waste time if I got out to hail a cab now." The driver glanced at the empty front passenger seat, about to make a suggestion. I guess he was going to propose that I sit in the front and go to the hospital with them. But I didn't want to, so I cut him off. "I'll take the bus. It's perfectly safe. You can go now." Ethan hurriedly instructed me, "Text me when you get home." The driver started the car. 10 seconds later, the taillights disappeared around the corner. Not long after I got home, I opened an app and bought a plane ticket for 3 days later. There was a sound at the entrance. Ethan had returned. I calmly closed the booking page on my phone. Just as I was about to return to my bedroom, he called out to me. I turned back. "Do you need something?" Ethan came closer, still carrying the coolness from outside. "Why didn't you text me when you got home?" "I forgot." I waited for half a minute. Seeing him gazing at me with eyes full of indescribable emotions, yet saying nothing, I was about to walk past him to leave. Suddenly, Ethan grabbed my wrist, his tone serious. "Selena and I are just friends. It was an emergency today. I would have done the same for anyone else." I was somewhat surprised that he would explain voluntarily. After patiently waiting for him to finish, I nodded calmly. I understand. I didn't think otherwise. Ethan didn't let go, his gaze revealing a rare hint of panic as he looked at me. For the next 2 days, Ethan seemed to return to the state he was in before Selena appeared. He walked to and from school with me. And during breaks, he mostly came to find me. He became close to me again. As for Selena, even though she stole the class funds to help pay for her grandfather's surgery, the rest of the class still became wary of her and actively distanced themselves from her. Before, everyone had maintained a polite facade for Ethan's sake, since he was close to her. Now that they saw Ethan distancing himself from her as well, Selena's isolation became even more apparent. The day before she was due to transfer schools, during break time, my desk mate nudged my arm. "Hey, Melissa," she said. "Make sure you keep your phone and wallet safe when you leave class these days. Let me tell you, a few days ago I was in the office registering everyone's personal information, and I saw that Selena's birthday is tomorrow." I was confused. So what? She rolled her eyes and pursed her lips. She's stolen once, she might steal again. Who knows? She might get greedy and nick some cash to buy herself a birthday present. A shadow fell over us. Ethan had been listening for who knows how long, his expression cold. "Are you quite finished?" he asked. He had never spoken to a girl in such a harsh tone before. Hasn't Selena already apologized? There was a hint of mockery in his eyes. What exactly does she need to do to be forgiven? The old Ethan would never have been so cutting. It seems Selena really had changed him a lot. My desk mate was a bit defiant. "I'm just being cautious, that's all," she said. "And what's it to you anyway, Ethan? Why are you defending her so much? Do you fancy her or something?" Ethan suddenly looked at me. I averted my gaze, feeling a detached calmness. He coolly replied, "Can't I stand up for a friend?" Then he left without showing any emotion. Ethan was still the same. The more he cared, the more nonchalant he tried to appear. After the evening study session, Mr. Smith called me to his office. "Your transfer paperwork is ready," he said. "The flight's tomorrow, right? Perfect timing with Sunday off, so you can start classes on Monday without any delay." I nodded, bidding a final farewell to this teacher who, despite prioritizing academics above all else, occasionally revealed a hint of warmth. On my way home, I gazed out the window, watching the scenery rush by in reverse. After days of emotional numbness, a slight sense of melancholy finally crept in. At home, Ethan wasn't as talkative as he had been in recent days. He seemed distracted as well. During dinner, my desk mate sent me a screenshot. It was Selena's social media post. "If I'm alone on my birthday again this year, I won't celebrate next year." The accompanying photo showed her sitting on the edge of a bridge, legs dangling over deep, dark waters below. My desk mate messaged, "What does she mean by this? She's not planning to kill herself, is she?" Almost simultaneously, Ethan's fork clattered to the floor across the dinner table. His hand, gripping his phone, was clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. His voice was low and hoarse, struggling to control its tremor. "I need to go out for a bit. You can finish eating without me." I nodded, picking up a pea with my fork. "All right." Ethan hurriedly stood up and put on his coat. But he paused abruptly at the front door. His hand on the doorknob, he called, "Melissa." I turned to look at him, responding with a questioning "Hmm?" The overhead light cast a thin glow, accentuating the intensity of emotion in Ethan's dark eyes. "I've been thinking," he said, gazing at me. "Getting engaged after graduation might not be such a bad idea. When I get back, can we talk to our parents about setting it up?" Selena's house was in the suburbs, over 60 miles from here. He wouldn't make it back before I left. I blinked and said softly, "All right." Ethan looked relieved as he closed the door behind him. I finished my dinner quietly and went to my room to pack. At 10:50 p.m., I set my alarm for 5 a.m. the next morning, turned off the lights, and went to bed. The next day, before dawn broke, I was checking the contents of my suitcase when I received a call from Mr. Smith, my form tutor. "I'm sorry, Melissa," he said. I've just seen the notice the administration sent me last night. There's been a problem with your transfer paperwork. It'll have to be delayed another week. You haven't left yet, have you? I sank down onto the carpet, sighing. No, sir. Oh, good, good. Don't forget to come to class on Monday then. I put the suitcase back in the wardrobe. After rescheduling my flight, I crawled back into bed to continue sleeping. I slept until the afternoon, but Ethan still hadn't returned. Ms. Webb, the housekeeper, seemed afraid I might be angry. She watched my expression carefully as she said in a low voice, "Thomas just called to say there's no need to prepare dinner for the young master tonight. They went to the countryside last night and found Miss Selina had fallen into the water. The young master is at the hospital looking after her now." Thomas was the Payne family's driver. I was only somewhat surprised. So Selina had really tried to commit suicide? I nodded casually. Well, we can just have something simple for dinner then, Ms. Webb. Would you like me to help? Before the housekeeper could reply, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Payne. Melissa. I heard Ethan's been at the hospital all night looking after his classmate. Oh my, staying up all night is so bad for one's health. Have Ms. Webb make some soup, and please take it over to him. Make sure he drinks it all, won't you? Mrs. Payne had always been quite nice to me. I agreed, all right, I'll go shortly. Don't worry. When I arrived, Ethan was sitting by Selina's hospital bed, wiping her hands as she slept. He glanced back at me when he heard me, but didn't stop what he was doing. You're here? I said. Mrs. Payne asked me to bring you some soup. She said to drink it while it's hot. Both his hands were occupied, so I lowered my voice and asked, "Shall I pour you a bowl?" Ethan lowered his eyes, saying listlessly, "No need, I'm not hungry. When Selina wakes up, she can have it." I reflexively replied, "But Mrs. Payne said it was made for you." After all, Mrs. Payne had tasked me with making sure he drank it. Ethan paused and looked up. His tone betrayed a hint of impatience. "It's just a bowl of soup. Why are you making such a fuss? If you hadn't caused her to injure her leg before, she wouldn't have lost her balance and fallen into the river last night. Do you realize she nearly died?" Ethan always seemed to struggle to control his emotions when it came to Selina. Having been through this so many times before, I was used to it. I didn't know what to say. I stood silently in place, holding the thermos. After a moment of tense silence, I pressed my lips together and said, "I'll leave the soup here then. Don't forget to drink it later." I supposed I'd completed my task. I quietly opened the door and left the room. Hurried footsteps followed behind me. Ethan had come after me. He grabbed my arm, a trace of weariness crossing his face. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take it out on you. The situation last night was so critical, I'm still shaken up." I wasn't thinking about what I was saying. Compared to the hurtful things Ethan had said during our past arguments, this really wasn't much. But I couldn't help recoiling from his touch. I pulled my arm away before saying, "I didn't take it to heart. By the way, Ethan, about what you said last night about getting engaged after graduation." "Melissa." He cut me off, speaking quickly. "Selina hasn't woken up yet. I'm not in the mood to discuss family matters right now." He turned his face away, avoiding my gaze. "Can we postpone this conversation for a while? After all, there's no rush to get engaged. We still have half a year until graduation, don't we?" Ethan's casual tone couldn't hide the tension in his words. Clearly, he thought I was pressuring him to finalize the engagement after graduation. I looked at him calmly. "Actually, I wanted to tell you that I've been thinking about it. And I think we should wait until after graduation too. Getting engaged too early isn't necessarily a good thing." I thought about my repeatedly delayed transfer and sighed. Otherwise, if something comes up that requires us to break off the engagement, it would be very difficult. Ethan slowly turned his head, his face expressionless. What could possibly require breaking off the engagement? I'm just saying if. Ethan's lips pressed into a thin line. There's no such possibility. I realized for the first time how difficult it was to communicate with him. The lift arrived just then, and the doors opened. I didn't respond to his words, stepping inside and pressing the button for my floor. Until the moment before the doors closed, he was still staring intently at me. As evening fell, Ethan returned home while still on the phone. He put his mobile on speaker and carelessly tossed it on the coffee table in front of me. Mrs. Payne's voice came through the line. "You little rascal. I've just found out that the classmate you've been taking care of is that girl who stayed at our house when she hurt her leg. You don't have any ideas about her, do you?" "No," Ethan replied as he stood by the kitchen counter, grabbing a glass to pour some water. "She's just a regular classmate." I didn't quite understand why he had put the call on speaker. I stood up from the sofa, intending to go back to my room. Ethan walked over, sat down, and pulled me back to sit beside him. Mrs. Payne let out a cold snort. "You'd better not. Don't forget, my daughter-in-law can only be Melissa, no one else." Her tone was so firm it gave me a headache. Ethan let out a light scoff. "I haven't forgotten. I haven't considered anyone else either. Are you satisfied now?" Mrs. Payne mumbled something along the lines of "that's more like it" before hanging up. He lazily folded his arms and looked at me. "See that? Your mother-in-law is quite protective of you. What about you? Do you suspect anything between Selena and me? Want to check my phone?" He twirled his finger and held the mobile out to me. I felt uncomfortable with his intimate tone. I stood up, almost fleeing. "No need. There's no need for this, Ethan. That's your privacy." I cast a longing glance at the TV, where the show I was currently obsessed with was playing. I'd better go back to my room and watch it on my tablet. I turned to go upstairs. In my peripheral vision, I saw Ethan sitting alone on the large sofa. His figure seemed to carry a hint of loneliness. On Monday, Selena was discharged from the hospital. Her face looked a bit pale and sickly, occasionally accompanied by a few coughs. During the break, she suddenly came to find me. "Melissa, I'd like to ask first, do you have a boyfriend?" she inquired. Her feigned ignorance was so obvious that even my desk mate couldn't bear it. She lowered her head, writing notes and snickering. Everyone in the class knew about my childhood betrothal to Ethan Payne. I rarely denied it. "No, I don't." Immediately after, an unmistakable gaze fixed upon me. I looked over to see its source. Ethan was staring at me intensely, exuding a palpable aura of displeasure. I couldn't understand why he was upset. In the past, when I unilaterally declared myself as his girlfriend, he never acknowledged it. He even openly denied our relationship after Selena appeared, saying the engagement was just casual talk between our parents and didn't count. He insisted we were just childhood friends who grew up together. Confused, I averted my gaze and listened as Selena excitedly continued. "Well, it's like this. The sports representative from the next class said that last week when he forgot his student ID, you didn't deduct any points. He's really grateful and asked me if you'd like to have dinner with him after school tonight." Eating out meant I wouldn't have to share a car with Ethan and go home together. By the time I got home, he would already be in his own room. I could avoid seeing him altogether. Thinking this, I agreed. "All right. I'll give you his number. You can contact him after school." Selena struggled to walk back, holding the piece of paper. As she passed Ethan's desk, she cheerfully asked him, "Ethan, when you drive me home tonight, could we make a detour to the supermarket? I'd like to make you a packed lunch for tomorrow." So Ethan wasn't planning to go home with me anyway. He rarely used such an indifferent tone with Selena. "I have plans tonight. I'll call you a cab. You can go home first." Selena's smile faded slightly. After a long pause, she softly replied, "Oh, all right. You go ahead with your plans then, don't worry about me. I can get home by myself." Ethan unusually didn't fuss over her, just giving a perfunctory Selena froze, not moving for a long while. I returned home after dinner. Ethan was sitting on the living room sofa with his back to me, listlessly flipping through TV channels. "Did you eat out?" The young man's tone was light but laced with a hint of sarcasm. It sounded rather harsh. I slowed down as I was putting my bag away, puzzled by his question. Is that a problem? I could feel my tolerance for him diminishing. Ethan, you used to go out for meals with Selena all the time. I never questioned you about it. Ethan tossed the remote aside and walked over to me. His hair was neatly combed, probably because he had just showered. Fine, I was wrong, he said, looking directly into my eyes with sincere dark pupils. If you don't like it, I won't have meals with her anymore. I'll also keep my distance from her. Melissa, if there's anything else you're unhappy about, just tell me. Let's resolve these issues and make up, okay? Ethan's voice lowered. Do you realize how much you've changed recently? You never used to be this cold towards me. I stared at him in shock, not expecting him to say such things. Perhaps my current attitude was making him uncomfortable? After hesitating for a long while, I shook my head. There's nothing I'm unhappy about. I think our current situation is fine. We weren't interfering with each other, and I was leaving in 5 days anyway. Ethan refused to back down. His spoiled young master temperament flaring up again. Well, I don't like it, he said, furrowing his brow and moving closer to me. What do I need to do to make you go back to how you were before? How I was before. When I used to chase after him. Still liking him even when he repeatedly abandoned me for Selena. Ignored me, and mocked me, never getting tired of it all? I looked at him calmly, saying nothing. He seemed to realize something and pressed his lips together. I'll change too, he said, tugging at my sleeve. Really? I couldn't remember Ethan ever acting coy like this before. Ms. Webb came downstairs with a mop, quickening her pace when she saw me. Melissa, you're finally back, she exclaimed. Young master, will you eat now? She let out a long sigh. Melissa, you don't know, but the young master hasn't eaten all evening. He insisted on waiting for you to come back to have dinner together. I mean, he already has stomach problems. Isn't this just torturing himself? I pulled my sleeve from Ethan's grasp, feeling somewhat angry. You knew very well I wasn't coming back for dinner tonight. Ethan's face was pale, likely due to low blood sugar from not eating for so long. He lazily turned his face away, adopting an attitude of indifference to whatever I might say. Ethan's moral manipulation was like an invisible hemp rope. It bound me, silently tightening, gradually depriving me of my breath. Finally, I agreed to reconcile with him. It was only a few days left, nothing I couldn't endure. Ethan seemed to be true to his word. He distanced himself from Selena and became close to me again. However, I wasn't happy about it. At lunchtime, Selena, her foot injury still not fully healed, slowly made her way to us, leaning against the wall. She handed a beautiful, brand new lunchbox to Ethan. Here, I made this morning, she said. It's to thank you for taking care of me at the hospital. Ethan glanced up briefly. No need, it was nothing, he said dismissively. He took out a bottle of milk from his backpack, inserted a straw, and naturally placed it in my hand. What do you fancy for lunch? He asked me. Standing beside them, I could feel Selena's embarrassment. Ethan, however, seemed completely oblivious. When Ethan was cold, he showed no mercy. Anything is fine. I managed to squeeze out 3 words uncomfortably. Ethan nodded and started walking towards the school exit with me. Selena stood rooted to the spot. As we brushed past her, I accidentally touched the side of the lunchbox. It was still warm. She must have had so many expectations while preparing this meal. 2 days before the departure, which was Thursday, someone suddenly mentioned during the break. Does anyone know where Miss Thief's gone? She hasn't been to school for days. I haven't been worried about my phone getting nicked lately. The class representative gave him a stern look. Mind your manners, will you? Selena's grandfather didn't make it. He passed away. She's taken a week off. The lad shut his mouth sheepishly, but another hesitantly chimed in. I heard she had to sell her family home back in the countryside to cover the hospital bills. Now she's lost both the house and her only family member, her grandfather. She must be devastated. Oh my God! Do you think she might? The word suicide wasn't spoken, but everyone understood, falling into a collective silence. A few days ago, Selena had posted on social media for her birthday. I didn't think she'd do anything drastic over Ethan then. Thankfully, she didn't. But this time, it's hard to say. Ethan showed no reaction, like a detached observer. However, that evening after school, he came out of his room with a small suitcase. Ethan, leaning on his crutch, said to me with difficulty, "I've been trying to reach Selena all afternoon, but I can't get through. I'm her only friend in this city. I can't just abandon her. Melissa, I promise this is the last time." He said he'd taken time off and needed to be with Selena for a few days, until she felt better. He even stressed that he'd be staying at a hotel and could send me his location every night as proof. This speech must have been rehearsed many times in his head to cover every detail. I felt exhausted for Ethan. I moved my lips. "All right, go then." Ethan repeated his promises a few more times before leaving. The day before departure, I cleared all the books from my desk and said goodbye to my desk mate and a few close classmates. They were determined to see me off, booking a private room at a restaurant outside school for the evening after classes. Ethan, like yesterday, sent me a hotel location. "I'm back. Are you home yet?" If I didn't reply within half an hour, he would call. I typed on my keyboard, "No, I'm having dinner with my desk mate and others." Why the sudden gathering? As I was pondering how to respond, Ethan sent another message. "For the engagement party after graduation? If you want to invite them, remember to tell them in advance. Otherwise, most will be on holiday after A-levels." I replied with an okay and put my phone away. At night, before bed, Ethan sent another message. "I'll be back tomorrow morning." I saw it but didn't reply. I set my alarm after checking the flight time one last time before sleeping. The next morning at 6:25 a.m. I boarded the plane and found my seat. After composing a message for Ms. Payne, including apologies for canceling the arranged marriage, transferring schools, and leaving without saying goodbye, I deleted all of Ethan's contact information, removed the SIM card, inserted a new one, and turned off my phone. As the sun crossed the horizon, the plane took off. Selena's mood had improved considerably. But as soon as she saw Ethan with his suitcase, she felt downcast again. "Are you going to leave me again?" she asked quietly, 2 tears rolling down her cheeks. "I don't want to be alone right now. Can't you take me to your place?" "I promise I won't be any trouble." In the end, Ethan reluctantly agreed to let her come along. He turned his head to gaze disinterestedly out the window. He thought to himself that Melissa would understand his predicament. After all, Selena's emotional state was unstable, and she really shouldn't be left alone. At 10 a.m., the car pulled up outside Ethan's manor house. Selena was a step behind as they got out. As she entered, she overheard Ms. Webb speaking cautiously to Ethan. "Melissa must have left before dawn. I only saw her goodbye message when I woke up this morning." Just then, Ethan's phone rang. The silence was deafening. Even though it wasn't on speaker, Selena could hear the angry shouting from the other end. "Ethan! What have you done now? Melissa says she's calling off the engagement. What happened to my daughter-in-law?" Selena was silently shocked. Ethan had a sinking feeling about this, so he wasn't entirely surprised. He simply said, "She's just having a tantrum." "Oh, so her completing all the paperwork to transfer schools is just a tantrum too, is it?" The veins on Ethan's hand gripping the phone bulged. But his tone remained relatively calm as he replied, "You'll have to ask her about that." He abruptly ended the call. Suddenly he lost interest in everything. Selena tried not to show her secret delight as she sat down next to Ethan and said softly, "Don't be upset. You haven't slept all night. Shall I make you some chamomile tea? It's very soothing. My grandfather taught me how to brew it perfectly." Ethan couldn't quite put his finger on why, but Selena's voice was grating on his nerves. "No need," he said curtly. "You should go home now." "I'd like to be alone for a while." Selena didn't mention her birthday again. "Wouldn't it be better if I stayed and we talked for a bit?" she suggested. "Being alone when you're upset can make you ill." Ethan gave a humorless laugh. Why don't you just say outright that you want to keep staying at the manor? Always coming up with these noble-sounding excuses. Aren't you tired of it? When his temper flared, he had a habit of being cruel and cutting. Selena had seen Ethan treat Melissa this way before. But it was the first time she was on the receiving end of his malice. Though hurt, she felt she could understand. All right, I'll go then, she said quietly. Before leaving, she told Ms. Webb how to prepare the chamomile tea. Ms. Webb watched Selena's retreating figure with mixed emotions. She disliked Selena because of her loyalty to Melissa. She didn't think Selena was a good person. But she could tell that Selena genuinely cared for Ethan. Ethan came up with a bunch of excuses to contact Melissa. Not to win her back. He intended to accuse her of leaving too abruptly. Even without taking many of her belongings. She didn't even have the basic sense of responsibility. But Melissa had changed her phone number. And her parents refused to give him her new one. He couldn't even vent his anger anywhere. Selena texted him again, "Are you feeling any better today?" Ethan glanced at it and set it to Do Not Disturb. He didn't reply to her that day. He knew the main responsibility wasn't Selena's, but his own. Yet he still couldn't help but despise Selena. For a whole week at school, Ethan deliberately avoided Selena. Until that day during PE class, during free activity time. Selena found him near the flagpole, hands behind her back, with a slight smile. "Can we talk?" Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. "I have something to do." "Let's talk next time." Selena blocked his way, saying softly, "It won't take long." Ethan suppressed his impatience. Selena seemed not to notice his aloofness, looked into his eyes, and smiled. "I've never told you before. I like you, Ethan." The boy's hand at his side curled imperceptibly. After a moment, he said flatly, "I'm sorry, I have a girlfriend." "Melissa?" Selena wasn't surprised by his rejection. Ethan nodded, "We're going to get married." Selena laughed, with a hint of confusion and mockery. "Do you know what cognitive dissonance means?" Ethan looked at her. She continued, "Weren't you the one who told me you were just friends with her? Weren't you the one who hurt her over and over again? Now that Melissa's gone, completely over you, you're still lying to yourself, using her as an excuse to reject others." Selena suddenly felt that Melissa was pitiful too. If this continued, she would become the next Melissa. She hadn't spent as much time with Ethan. So she was able to detach herself in time. She saw through his true nature completely. "Do you think you're being devoted like this?" Selena gradually dropped her smile, looking at him calmly. "Wavering between me and Melissa, unwilling to give up either of us. On the surface, you're soft-hearted, not wanting to hurt either of us. But in reality, you're just weak, wanting to have your cake and eat it too." Ethan didn't move, silently listening to her speak. After Melissa stopped liking him, was this how she saw him? For the past week, because of his cold treatment, Selena had been restless every day. She wanted to text him, but seeing that he hadn't replied to several of her messages, she stopped typing. Every time her phone vibrated, she hurriedly checked if it was a message from Ethan. At school, he avoided her at all costs. But she didn't even know what she had done wrong during this time. Melissa wasn't driven away by her. She only approached him after Ethan said he and Melissa were just friends. It wasn't until yesterday evening after school, when the form tutor called her to the office to discuss her recent distraction in class and declining test scores, that she was able to break free from this state of anxiety. She wasn't Melissa. She didn't have the luxury of being complacent. That's why she cornered him here, to make a clean break. Selena took a step back, looking at the boy in front of her who had made her heart flutter for the first time. "Ethan, I won't like you anymore. Because you really don't deserve it. Apart from your good looks, you're truly rotten inside." She closed her eyes briefly and smiled. "Although I'm not a good person either. I stole class funds, cruelly provoked Melissa, and framed her. But I've never wronged you. I was genuinely, properly fond of you." Her sincerity towards Ethan was always genuine. Perhaps she had developed empathy for Melissa. Before leaving, she gave Ethan a piece of advice. "If you have even the slightest genuine affection for Melissa, don't bother her anymore. Rather than your repentance, she'd prefer to focus on her A-levels in peace. Selena left. Only he remained in place. The breeze rustled his clothes. Ethan suddenly laughed self-mockingly. How had he fallen to such a miserable state? After I returned home, Dad still occasionally received calls from Ethan for a while. He asked for my contact information. I was worried for a time that he might come looking for me. Fortunately, he stopped calling later. His anger must have subsided, and he gradually forgot about it. I settled down and focused on preparing for my exams. When I saw Ethan again after the A-levels results were out, it felt like a lifetime had passed. He stood outside my house, looking slightly awkward. "It's been a long time, Melissa." I was still holding a rubbish bag. "Did you need something?" He nodded and placed an elegantly wrapped gift box in my hands. "Congratulations on ranking in the top 15 in the city." As if afraid I wouldn't accept it, he added, "It's from my mom." I took it, saying, "Thank Mrs. Payne for me." Ethan hesitated to speak, and I was growing impatient. "If that's all, I'll be heading back in." As I turned, he spoke up. "I'm sorry. I know this might not mean much to you now, but I felt I should formally apologize to you. I caused you a lot of pain and said many hurtful things." He murmured softly. "In the beginning, I was the one who couldn't let you go. I was the one who insisted on bringing you to the Payne family." I looked back at his remorseful expression for a few seconds, then nodded. "Apology received. I'm going now." This time, Ethan didn't stop me. It wasn't entirely insignificant, actually. I had already made peace with all the past pain, but that didn't mean I was completely indifferent. His apology felt like finally removing the last bit of cotton stuck in my heart. In the future, when I think of these events, I won't feel that slight tightness in my chest or that twinge of discomfort anymore. At the end of August, I moved into my university accommodation, dragging my luggage. The campus was plastered with various motivational quotes. I paused in front of an old signboard, feeling the breeze from all directions. It read, "Long have I battled with myself, I choose to be me."